Hello, how are you?
How are you?
I am well.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It's nice to be here. Yeah. Hang on, my lights are a little bright.
It's really good. I really would like to thank you very much for your acceptance. And it's a great honor for us to have you here on our Zoom Live. Thank you very much.
Well, it's nice to be here. Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah, it's very nice. It's nice to see so many people.
Yeah, we got invited some students offline and also about 20 students through online too.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is going to be a big chance for them. And it's a very special, I made a small proposal, but you accepted and responded with a big response. So I really cannot express how I should say thank you. So well, first of all, as I mentioned in my email, we are located in Busan and PK University. It's one of the national university. It's a really good university, but though there are still big differences between Seoul and regional areas, and they are really worried about their future plan, what kind of job, what kind of studies. And while in the other side of the country, in the United States, in Pennsylvania, you're talking about Korea is becoming really having a big potential and growing a lot. And we are not that feeling like that. So I really wanted to have you so that you can encourage our students. Okay? So at first, I would like to ask you, you are too much famous already, and I know that you are invited to Korea a couple of times already. I didn't do that before. But anyway, just, introduce about yourself a little, and what is your basic perception about Korean or how you or Korean students, and what is the strength of, Korea, how becoming so growing fastly, whether it's going to be an education or economic push or whatever it is. Give your some basic comment and philosophy to us. And then I would like to get some questions and then you can answer for that. Is it okay with you?
Yeah, that's good. That works. Hey, let me ask you though. So does everybody, so I assume everyone speaks English, yeah, who's on the call. But I will also assume that it will be helpful if I speak more slowly and more clearly for some people. Yeah.
Not 100% they are fluent in English, but they have been researching about some YouTube about you because we already will have this Zoom. And as far as our time is a little limited today, so I'm not going to translate what you're saying, but if it's really good when you speak a little slowly. But some parts, if it's too really difficult and if translation is required, then let me give them a very short explanation what you are really trying to say. But basically, they do understand. They do understand.
Okay. I think for me, hang on, let me make sure that I have the right microphone on. Yeah, we are good. Okay, so for me, it is easy if I speak more slowly. I speak Spanish, and I know that when I was learning Spanish, it was always really useful. It was good when Spanish speakers spoke more slowly and more clearly. It was very helpful for me. And I'm used to talking like that because I speak to many international audiences over the years, and I travel a lot, and so I'm used to speaking with people who do not speak English perfectly, and so I will speak more slowly. I think that is better. So let me give you some background on me. I think that's always really useful. And I only recently started talking about this more publicly, so many people don't know. I first started thinking about Korea in 1984 when I was a master's student. and I had there was a graduate student, a student from Korea, and he was in the same office as me. And I started learning about different things connected to Korea. And then I had a meal. I went to his house with him and his wife, and we had a meal. And I really fell in love with Korean food. And so that was that was really important. That's when I had kimchi for the first time.
Right. You remember
And,
the menu?
yeah, I remember. We had barbecue.
Uh,
Yeah. And kimchi and rice and a soup. I don't know which soup, but I'm sure, you know. So then I started really paying attention to Korea because you in 1984 you had an authoritarian government. The military was in power, and I was studying Latin America, South America, and militaries. I was studying militaries and governments, and so I found that comparing Korea to what I was studying in Latin America was really interesting. And so then I got more interested in Korea, and I started really paying attention to the government. And when, you know, in the mid to late 80s, when there were so many strikes and the labor unions in Korea were so strong, and the students were protesting, maybe you, Wusik, maybe that was you protesting in.
I was in the middle of, you know, demonstrations, strike,
Yeah.
Korean president, you know, assassinated, everything. So
Yeah.
even there was no school.
Yeah.
Stopped.
Yeah. So I remember that. I really followed that very carefully. And then I'm a scholar of other areas. You know, I lived in South America for a while, and then I just always, in my mind, I would read about Korea when it came up in the news. You know, I paid attention. You know, it wasn't like Japan or Hong Kong or Southeast Asia. You know, Korea was different. Whenever I saw something about Korea, I paid attention, you know. But it wasn't until maybe about 2005 or 2010, somewhere in there, when I started to talk about Korea in my classes, because I was really noticing how the economy was growing so much and how the culture was being exported around the world. And that's when I first heard the word Hallyu. And so then I would talk to my students about, you know, just technology in Korea and how the economy was growing so fast, and that they really should pay attention to Korea. And then I, you know, studied, I'm a musician, so I like music, and I would listen to K-pop. Maybe around 2010 is when I first really started listening to what we called K-pop, you know, here, right? And I always had the idea that there would be a K-pop group that was going to be really, really important in the world. And I thought it would be Girls' Generation, because they just seemed to be so popular, you know, when they first came out, maybe in like 2012, or I'm not sure when it was, but it wasn't, right? So I always waited, and that's when it was really BTS was the one that I finally realized, okay, this is the group that's going to really introduce Korea to the world. So anyway, so I have been actively thinking about Korea for, okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, my battery died.
Okay.
So listen, so given what I just said, I wonder if there are any students who have a question for me just about that.
Okay. So 여러분들 이제 질문 있으면 자유롭게 하면 질문을 통해서 자기가 답변을 해주겠다고 하시거든요. Any questions?
can I ask first on behalf of our students? My name is Boram. I work for PKNU as a member of the Department of Service Center. Then I help my student can find their vision by supporting double majoring system and planning other programs. Anyway, Korea, the first question is about that. How does the Korean wave affect Korean students? So, yeah, to expand, to continue the lasting power of Korean wave, what is the role of our Korean student? What should our student do?
Yeah.
The first question.
Well, you know, the first thing that I think is really important for all Korean students to know is that you are seen in the rest of the world as very serious, very good students, innovative, and really willing to work hard. Okay, so that's how the world sees you. And that may not be true, right? Because some of your students, that's not true of all Korean students, right? Because some Korean students don't want to work hard and they don't care. Yeah. But in the world, that's how you are seen. Okay. And so that means that when you, like, for example, when my colleagues here at my university, when they say, like, you know, hey, I was talking to one of my Korean students, or I have a couple of Korean students, in their minds, that student is a good student. Okay. So you have the advantage of being stereotyped as in a very, very positive way. Okay. Because it could be very different, right? You could be lazy, or you could be, you know, I don't know. We have some students from certain parts of the world who the perception of them is that they don't take their studies seriously, that they're always trying to get out of work, or that they cheat or something like that. Yeah, or they're not very smart. But Korean students have the stereotype that you're really good. And that means that opportunities are available for Korean students that may not be available for many other students. Okay, so that from a perception, so that if I'm a Korean student and I'm living, you know, you're living in your life in Korea, I should be thinking about how I engage the rest of the world with the idea that the rest of the world has a very positive perception of me, because that will change how I engage, how I enter the world, how I interact with other people around the world. Okay. Like, for example, do you apply for a scholarship to go somewhere? Or do you, you know, seek out some kind of opportunity to do something in another part of the world, right? And you have an advantage in that way. So the second part of your question is, you know, the wave, right? How do you? Well, the wave is coming from the combined creative forces of all of Korea. And so if I'm a Korean student, you know, I just know that, well, I'm just going to be part of that wave, and then I am part of the wave. Now, you have a different experience though, right? Because, you know, you're studying, you need to find a job. You want to find a job that will pay a salary that will allow you to have a family if you want to have a family, or buy an apartment, or buy a car if you want to buy a car, or travel. And those are different issues. Yeah. So if I'm a Korean student, it's the same for me as if I am a student anywhere in the world. I'm worried about my own future. Okay. But you are going to continue to have some opportunities that many students from many parts of the world are not going to have, simply because of the perception. And also because you're getting a really good education. You're very educated compared to students from many parts of the world, even though you may not think so, because you're competing with other Korean students. But the fact is, you're very highly educated, and people see that and they understand that. Yeah. How is that for an answer?
Thank you.
It's hard to see ourselves it's hard to be outside of ourselves and imagine how we are seen in different parts of the world. It's a very difficult thing to do. Yeah.
I can give you a very clear example. You know, as I told you, I studied abroad in France and the States. When I went to France, wherever my classmates see me, and their first question is, where are you from? Then I'm from Korea. Then automatically from South or North.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even somebody, they didn't know where South Korea was located.
Yeah.
But it was still better it was still better because we had our Korean 88 Olympic, and then I went to study abroad. Some people knew about Korea, but if I went there before 88, nobody knew about Korea.
Yeah. Yeah.
My daughter went to Canada just for exchange program when she was 13 years old. When she said, I'm from Korea, and the next response was, oh, you know, Gangnam Style, or,
Yeah.
yes. So her popularity just grew up at the beginning.
Yes. Yes.
Is the perception difference about Korea.
And you know, the thing is that matters for people, right? Like, it may be that's the only thing that we know, but it's far more than what we know about many other countries. Like, for example, Americans know nothing about Japan, right? If you ask Americans to say something about Japan, they will say, well, I don't know, Honda and Toyota and Hiroshima, Nagasaki, I don't know, World War II. They don't know anything, right? We don't know anything about Taiwan, about Singapore, about any Hong Kong, nothing, right? So, but increasingly people know something about Korea, and what they know is positive. That's the important thing. What people don't know very much, but everything they know is very positive. So, and even, you know, that same question, Wusik, the people still ask Korean students here in the US, are you from North or South Korea? They still don't know that, of course, they're from South Korea, right? You know, but so they don't know the details. All they know is it's positive. If you say you're from Korea, okay, that's a positive thing. Yeah. How about somebody else? How about another question?
Hi. My name is Choi. I'm Bugyeong National University student too, and I'm senior in my last semester. These days, I have tried to change my life one by one because I hope to live totally different life in tomorrow or the future. So my question is, have you had similar experience to make some change in your life? Or if you had, I want to know what was that?
Oh, man.
Good though.
This is a great question. You know, so I was not a very good student in high school.
Oh, that's very encouraging for us.
Yeah. No, listen, I mean, I didn't go to class. I didn't do homework. I didn't do things, but I would sneak out of class and I would go to the library and read books because I really like to read. And, but I didn't I didn't like school because school to me was just about grades. And I felt like teachers, I felt like I could learn better on my own. Okay. And so therefore I didn't take anything very seriously. And in fact, I did learn better on my own, I think, because in class I mostly just slept or daydreamed. Yeah. Okay, so I started college and I went to a university that I in my hometown. So I lived at home and I drove to the university. And it was, they admitted me to the university because they admitted anybody who applied. Okay. So there was no question that I would get into the university. And after 1 year, I would stop going to all my classes. You know, I would go to class and then after a couple of weeks, I would stop because I was trying to be a musician. I wanted to be I was a drummer. I still am a drummer, but I wanted to be a professional musician. And I was working, and so I didn't have time for school. And I didn't see what the point was of school. And my family, mostly very few people in my entire family went to the university. So after the second year, the same thing happened. Each quarter, I would start taking classes and then I would stop. And I would just get busy with my music. In the third year, I moved to a 2-year college. So we in the US, we have a 4-year college and a 2-year college. I don't think you have some trade technical colleges in Korea, but it's not like you don't have the 2-year like we do. So I said, well, I will never get a 4-year degree, but I think I can get a 2-year degree. So I took 4 classes. And this was it. If I stopped going to classes, I was going to leave and never come back. So I dropped 1 class and I dropped the 2nd class and I stopped going to the 3rd class and I had 1 class left. And I was on my way to that class and I saw the library and I said, I'm going to go to the library and read because I like to read. And I was in the library. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I saw a book about a magazine about prisons. And I started reading it. And it was like a sociology magazine, you know. And I said, wow, for the first time in my life, I had an idea of something that I thought would be really interesting to do. And so in that moment, I went to the telephone and I called the sociology department and I said, hey, can I talk to somebody about taking sociology classes? And the person said, yes, an advisor said, yes, come over. Yeah. And so I signed up for sociology classes for the next quarter, the next term. And I went home and I told the people in my band, I said, hey, I'm quitting the band in 5 weeks, right? I'm going to stop. And I told I had a job and I said, hey, in 5 weeks, I'm going to quit. And I decided in that moment I was going to be a serious student. And what I learned was that in order to be a really serious student, I had to not think about how exactly I was going to change how I was going to live my life. I just had to change one thing, and that was to take my studies really seriously. And so I did. And it was really amazing. It was very difficult because I had so much learning that I had to do. But it took many years, but I really just changed the way I see the world and understand the world. And that was a moment when I decided to make that change, and I never looked back. You know, I just never, and I didn't care. I didn't think about what I was going to do. And I didn't worry about a job, and there were so many things I didn't think about. I just knew that I wanted to learn and understand the world. Yeah, so that was a moment when I made a big change. But change can be very difficult, you know. Hey, let me ask you, Choi, right? What do you want to change? Just out of curiosity.
Especially, I want to do a lot of things in now or future, but I don't have, to be exact, I don't have enough money to do. If I do the things I really want, I should have a lot of enough money for me or for my family or for my friends. So that is what I want to do.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a thought. If you have a vision for something that you really, really feel drawn to do, like you feel really excited by, you move toward that. And there's anything you feel excited by, you can move toward it without money. Okay, you can take the first steps. Oh, the first steps always involve awareness, right? It involves like what you feel here, like in your heart. And it involves a deeper understanding. And so even if you're working another job, like sometimes I would work one job, but my passion was in something else. But I had to work that job just to make the money that I needed in order to survive, you know? But what I see with many students is that they think that they have to wait. And it's not true always, right? But many people feel like they have to wait until they are ready to begin to pursue they need something in order to pursue their dream. And I always say, just start pursuing your dream. The money will come. It always will come. The doors will open and some doors close. The other thing, listen, this is really important. This is the Buddhist way, right? And I think the Buddhist way is really a very important teaching. When a door doesn't open, right, that's okay. Yeah. And when a door opens, that's okay too. Because behind every door that opens is something that you want to, is a good thing and a bad thing. And behind every door that does not open is a good thing and a bad thing. Okay? So sometimes we feel like when a doorway for an opportunity doesn't open for us, we think we failed. But what we forget is that behind that doorway, if there's something you really, really, really want to have happen, and the door opens for you and you walk down that path, on that path are negative things and positive things. And so like, okay, we only think of the positive things. We forget the negative things. And so the same thing is true if a door does not open for us and we're stuck in a particular place. In this place where we are will be good things and bad things, positive things and negative things. And so wherever we are, it's perfect. We just have to see what we need to learn from where we are at any one moment.
I want to put his question in another way. For example,
Yeah.
When I was in my university, I always played hooky. But anyway, when
this is true of many professors, right? People have the idea that professors were the most serious people. And in fact, I find that many of my colleagues were really bad students.
Your energy left and remained.
Yeah.
And then later, when you went to library instead of going to class, but it was not a short temporary time. Actually, you did it for a long time, right? And
Yeah.
going to the band and not going to class, going to the library, reading books. I want to ask you, you were not afraid about your future
No.
at that time.
No.
You were not because fear is a kind of something big obstacle in people's mind, right?
Especially the younger generation today, because you have these phones, yeah, and on your phone, when you scroll through Naver, whatever you scroll through, all you see are the best things that people want to put on here. So it looks like everyone is successful and everyone is having a good time and everyone is happy. And when your professor and I, when we were young, we didn't have any of that. All we had was just ourselves. We would just look in a mirror and we would see us, and then we had a few friends. But you have the whole world, and everybody is happy, and everybody's a success, and everybody has all these amazing things that are happening to them. Yeah. And then the only thing that we can think is like, oh, that's not all happening for me. And so therefore I must be a failure somehow. But we didn't have that. And so we were very lucky. And this is a very, very difficult obstacle to overcome. Yeah. It's really very difficult. And so you have to be very careful. It's oppressive. Wusik, do you see, right? Can you imagine when you were young that you open your phone up and every photo you see is somebody in your university or your community or somewhere that's doing amazing things, and God, oh, that's terrible.
Even now, when I watch some, Netflix, YouTube, everyone is so nice and looks perfect. So
Yeah.
the young generation is much better than me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's an obstacle. So I really don't try to look at others. I always try to tell the people to look at your past and then compare
Yes.
yourself right now. Don't try
Yes.
to compete with others. Compete with yourself as far as you are young.
Yeah. Yeah. I was as an academic, I didn't have money until I was 32 years old. I was just a poor student for 32 years. And I never thought about money. And I had a professor who told me, listen, he said, if you're going to be a scholar, right? I mean, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to pursue this path, then pursue the path. Don't worry about money. If money comes to you, it comes to you. Whatever comes to you will come. Fame or fortune or anything. But if it's not meant to come to you, it will not. And you can't try to make it happen. Just live life. And so I always looked for the things that I knew would make me happy. And sometimes they were very small things, I didn't buy lots of things. I lived a very small life. Now it's different because I'm older and I've had many experiences, but I've never worried about money.
Don't worry about the money, worry about your dream.
Yeah, exactly.
I cannot never forget your word. I keep it in my mind forever. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The most important thing is that idea that if Choi, like if you say, oh, I really want to go have the opportunity to something, I don't know, something good, right? And it doesn't happen. You have to remember that all these terrible things, bad things that happen to people, there were many people who, I don't know, this is the thing that I think about all the time, right? So often when something really terrible happens, there's somebody to whom that terrible thing happened, but they thought it was amazing. Let's say, for example, that you win somebody offers you an opportunity to fly to the United States, and and you're like, oh gosh, and you win a scholarship or something, you go to the United States, and you think, wow, this is the best thing in the world, and my life is going to open up. And then maybe the plane doesn't arrive, the plane crashes. And on the way down on the airplane, you think, oh, God, why? It's too bad that I had this great thing happen to me, But maybe the thing doesn't happen to you. And you think, okay, so that didn't happen. I didn't win that scholarship, or I didn't win that thing. So something really good is going to come because I didn't do that, because I didn't get to have that. So now I will get to have something else. That's so important. I live my life with this. Always live my life with this. Yeah, Wusik, that's the thing for me. Every time I read about like a plane crash or something, and I think, wow, there was someone on that airplane who was so happy to be on that flight was like the most important thing in their life.
Actually,
And
I had a very disastrous experience about that. Someone who had two friends, they have a schedule. One go to Paris, one go to Burma. Out of Burma. But these two people had been experienced already to have gone there in the past. So they changed the schedule, and the plane crashed down, and all the passengers died. So their destiny was completely changed.
that's so amazing. This is so amazing, really. When you're young, you don't understand this because you don't have any experience. But when you get to our age, we can look back and, every bad thing that ever happened to me that I did not want to happen created some opportunity that was really good. And then I'm thankful for it. And I look back and I see those bad things that happen, and I'm really happy that they happened. Now, at the time I wasn't, but now I think, oh, thank you to the universe that happened. So, that's where age is a very good thing. The years, experience.
So
How about another question?
You have to trial and error, try. This is the only time for you to make a fail.
Yeah. Knowing that it will be okay.
Other questions?
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Now I just wondering that whether if you can see me in this small screen.
I can. Yep, I see you.
My name is Ho Young, and I'm studying public administration and social welfare in my university. And before I start my question, I want to say thank you to give us a good opportunity for us to meet you. And I have two questions about you, and can I say it one by one?
Yes.
My first question is that the all common things you mentioned in lecture, especially in Korea, was Korea is such a good country which has a great potential. And I was really happy to hear that as Korean, but at the same time, we still have some improvement points and for developing our country. So my question is, can you tell us what we need to improve as national point of view?
Yeah, okay. So here, first, let me start out by saying, there a lot of times with Koreans, it's hard. You have such high standards. And in your education, you have such high standards. You study really hard, you study for the Sunan exam, and it's so stressful. You put, it's too much, really, but it's good that you have high standards, But sometimes because you have high standards, you also see the places where your culture, your society has weaknesses. okay, where it doesn't rise to the level at which you think it should. But what I'm often telling Koreans is, listen, I know your country has weaknesses, but every country in the world has weaknesses. You really have to understand how far ahead you are in so many things, like education, as an example. So one area is, just the ability to feel a sense of community that the Koreans can experience. And I know that this sense of community is weakening in Korea, because that's just what happens with modernization and change. And it's also, what happens with the rise of the web and cell phones and so on, right? But it's still so much stronger than other community-based cultures around the world. Yeah, it still is really strong. Okay. I think that the problem that I see is that Korea, so much of the good things that Korea has been able to do in the past 50 years is because of a strong sense of community. And as that weakens, right? And as, for example, when you are wanting to get educated more for your own benefit than for the benefit of your family or your community or your country, right? Because there's a balance, right? It's your personal goals or your community goals. And what we see is our societies that are kind of in the middle, and they have a tendency toward one side, the personal or the community. The United States is very personal. Like my students, they're only in college. The only thing that matters is them, like the Americans. It's them. It's their own individual goals. In Korea, so in the United States, the community is really weak. So we lean in this way toward the individual. In Korea, you lean toward the community. The individual's still strong. Like you all are in college to get a job, to promote to have a good life, to help your family, and so on. Those are really important things. But you also have a sense of community and a sense of your country and your nation and your culture. And it's different than in the United States. We don't do anything for our country. No, Americans do nothing for the country at all. It is purely individual motivation. And so as you move from here, right? And again, you're very interested in yourself, but you have this community. As you move from here, more toward here, more back toward the individual, I think you're going to lose some parts of Korean culture that are really important and are going to be important in the future. So that's a thing that I'm very cautious about. Yeah. If that makes sense. All right.
I totally agree with your idea and understand your opinion. And my second question is, when I watched another lecture's video, you mentioned about the professor's role, and you said it is as professor, you just want to give your students a lot of inspiration, not that kind of really like information.
Yeah.
And I watched it. I saw that you had over 60 class. Actually, you said 60 shows for 1 year, and you did a professor job for more than 40 years. And I'm just curious about how you get inspirations from others. And also, I just want to ask you, what is your motivation for you to have enormous passions about it?
Oh, gosh, that's a really lovely question. I'm like a child. I'm like a a 3-year-old child who just learns to talk, and they start seeing the world, and everything they pick something up and they say, what is this? And and then they want to play with it, and this is a remote control for my light, so I can turn my light on and say, oh, okay. And then I'm a child. I want to play. I want to discover things. But I'm a child inside of a body of a man, who's 60 years old. And I think that has never left me. I'm really curious. And my inspiration comes from my curiosity. I just want to know. And the world is such a complex place that I can never, ever, ever get answers to all of my questions. And so I teach as a way to dedicate a certain amount of time to get answers to my questions. And I use my students as people who can give me the answers to the questions. They can provide me, because basically I'm just asking my students and then they tell me. And yeah, so that's where the inspiration comes from. Yeah, and I get it because I just love to learn. I really, really love to learn. Yeah, I don't have enough time to learn. This goes to Wusek, what you said. Because when we're bad students, when we're not really good students, we don't get burned out. See, when you go to the cram schools and you have all of your tutoring and you're really worried about getting really good grades, and that's what you're concerned about, you get very stressed. And when you get stressed, you get burned out. And so when you finally graduate, it's like, oh, I'm done. I'm done with all of this. But for me, when I graduated, I was just beginning, because I didn't get burned out, because I didn't care about my grades. Yeah. So I still have the passion that I had when I was a little child of 3 years old or 4 years old.
Oh, thank you for your answer.
Excuse me,
But
it's almost 10:53. Is it okay, Sam, if you get some more questions?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm just hanging out here. So if people have time, if they want to leave, they can leave. But if they want to stay, it's good. Yeah. And maybe somebody else who's on Zoom who wants to turn their microphone on.
So there are some other questions on my chat. So let me review it after her questions.
All right.
okay, I'll just stop my question, and I'm really thank you for your answers, and I hope someday I'll have your class in your university one day. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Your Englishes are really good,
Yeah, it's very difficult to speak English.
because
Yeah.
the try is really important. If you're not trying, it's pointless and cruel. So
Yeah.
just keep trying like that. Then you want to make a success in your future. Simple.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I find that Koreans, so many of you, because you study English, yeah, and so many of you can read really well and you can write really well, but you feel like a sense of intimidation to speak. Yeah. And I think that that's part of the Korean education system. Like, you have to do something perfect. And that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing, because it means that you're less likely to try something until you get it perfect. And speaking a language, you have to just make mistakes.
Sam, hello.
Hello,
My name is Yuna.
Yuna.
I'm a student majoring in chemical engineering. So I think I'm a bad student because my grades are very low, and I have a lot of F. So I decide to take a semester because I don't know what I like and where I will go. So in the meantime, I knew me about I had to have a goal, my goal. I want really. So, but I couldn't set my goal because I don't know what I want to do. I really want to do. So what can I do to find my goal and dream?
Well, first, let me ask you, how old are you?
I'm 21
Yeah.
years old.
So 21, like when you think about how crazy life is, first off, I want to just say this, okay? Life is really, it's kind of troubling in a way, right? That when we're 20 years old, we're expected to know what we want to do with the rest of our lives, but we don't have any experience. So like you have no idea. Like you don't, when I was, listen, I only decided that I have been teaching for almost 40 years, okay? It was about 10 years ago that I decided that I really wanted to be a teacher. So I spent almost 30 years teaching, and I wasn't certain that I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't know, should I do this? Should I not do this? But it took me 30 years to really understand what teaching was, and that this was a really good path for me. It's like, oh, God, okay. So first off, I say that because it's really good for you to not feel so much pressure, like somehow that there's something wrong with you. In some ways, really, what's wrong is when I meet someone who's 20 years old and they know exactly what they want to do with their entire life. And I say, how do you know you want to do that with your entire life? And sometimes people want that. Sometimes people do. Like, let's say I have a student who's a chemical engineer and they say, you know what? I just love chemical engineering. I know I don't know other things. I haven't tried out. I haven't traveled. I haven't tried other things, but I just love what I do. And I say, okay, well, great. And then maybe one day you'll decide that you don't love it anymore and you'll do something else. But for that person, that's fine. But there are very few people who at the age of 20 or 21 can say that they love it, you know? So that's the most important thing, that you start from that place to say, okay, I'm normal, like I'm okay, like I don't know. And then I ask my students to say, well, you know, so for me, when I was your age, like I knew that I was really good in math. Like I just knew that I was like, but I could only do math in my own mind. Like I loved numbers and I loved playing with numbers and I did my own math calculations, right? But when I took a class and they said, okay, you know, now you have to solve for X, or you have to do math in this way, you have to follow these strategies, I didn't understand what they were talking about. I had no idea. And then I would get Fs. I took a basic algebra class and I flunked it 5 times, right? And I finally said, okay, I can't do this. And I'm not doing this, right? Even though I knew I was good in math, like I knew that I had some ideas. So then now I really wish I want to take some math classes, because I feel like I'm ready to do math. Like I'm really ready at a high level. I really want to discover math and I want to really live it and experience it. Okay. But now I don't have time, so I won't do that, you know, so, okay, that's fine. So my question to you would be, well, why are your grades, this is what I would ask, right? Like, why are your grades low? Is it because you don't like to study, you don't have time to study, or you do study, but for some reason, your brain just doesn't click? Like mine with math, it didn't click at the time. Now it would. Now, if I studied math, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. But but I wasn't ready then. So my question for someone like you, when you were my student, I say, okay, so what's going on, right? Are you just not inspired by chemical engineering? Are you like, if not, like, okay, well, what are you inspired by? So now I'm going to ask you that question. So Yunnan, yeah? Why are your grades so low?
I didn't follow it. Yes. 멘토님 translate 해주실 수 있을까요? 왜 이걸 배우고 있는지를 이유를 못 찾겠다라고 말을 하고 싶은데.
그 전공을 좋아하지를 않는 거네.
네.
Even though I'm majoring in chemical engineering, at this moment I really don't understand why I'm majoring in it and why I chose this subject. That's why she can.
I choose the chemical engineering because I will go to good company. So I choose that, but I didn't like this. And so
Yeah. So yeah, okay. So you start with, so this is the problem, right? You start by saying, okay, you started by saying, I need to work for a good company. Yeah. Like Samsung or Hyundai or something, who knows, right? And so, okay, I need to do that. And so therefore I will major in engineering, in chemical engineering. Yeah. You could start by saying, okay, listen, I want a job that is fulfilling for me, and I need to make enough money that I can buy food, yeah, and pay my expenses. Okay, so I need a job that will do that. But it never has to be for a good company. I need a job, and so therefore I need a career. And so let me follow the career that feels most interesting to me. Because if you don't really understand engineering, that means you're not supposed to be in it. That's like me. I was trying to be an accounting major, and so I had to take math, but I couldn't do the math, so I couldn't be an accountant. So okay, so I moved towards something else. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So what you say then is like, okay, therefore, me, Yuna, I'm a bad student. It's like, no. You're just not, the engineering is not clicking for you. It's like you have a switch in your brain and it's not turning on. But you have to pursue the thing that turns on in your brain. Like for me, it was sociology. Yeah. And I wanted to be an engineer or an accountant or something, but I couldn't. And so I moved to sociology. Yeah. And then when that happens, it doesn't matter what your grades are, because when you pursue something with passion and every day you are learning, the grade is irrelevant. Look, for example, if I would have if my grades had been better, I would have gone to a better PhD program, and I would teach at a better university than Penn State, than where I am now, okay? And I would never, ever have met you. I wouldn't be doing any of the things that I'm doing with Korea, none of it. I would have a completely different path. And my path is, I'm so happy with my path. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for that great question.
Here, one more question at the Zoom. Oh, this is a big question, but I would like to make it shorten. The concept is in Korea. This is a kind of Korean culture and Korean situation, actually. Everyone in Korea, a lot of people are more obsessed with comparing with other people.
Oh, yes.
Other
Too much.
Really have a good car, nice jobs, nice house. I would like to buy that. I would like to have that one too, but I can't afford to do it. So if I can do it, I want to marry and I want to have a baby, but I can't. So I give up my marriage. and so many youngsters give up marriage, and this because of serious social problems. How
Yeah.
can we live without comparing ourselves with others, only focusing on myself?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. No. You have to learn how to live with others, live among others without comparing yourself to others. Okay. Without wanting what others have. That's what it is. Like I compare myself to others all the time. Like I compare myself to you with your professor right now. Look, is that your office with your Wusik? Are you in your office?
Yes, I'm actually right now. I'm home working.
Okay.
So
Okay. So I look at your home and I think, oh, wow, look at those bookshelves. I wish I had bookshelves like that. Oh my God, that's cool. That looks really cool. Like, oh, okay. And then suddenly I just am comparing, as opposed to say, then I say, oh, I want that. As opposed to say, oh, look at, he's got those really nice bookshelves. That's really cool. I like that. And then I have mine and I don't want his and he doesn't want mine. And if you don't learn to do that, your life will be miserable. Yeah. And Koreans, wow, there's too much of wanting, of seeing, again, it's all of this stuff that's on here. There's too much wanting to be like other people, as opposed to just appreciating all of the things, some of the things that other people have. Yeah. So it's like, oh, God. What you need to do is every time you see someone with something and you feel like, oh, I wish I had that, some new shoes or a new job or an opportunity or something, start thinking about all the things that people have that you don't want. Think about the people who are depressed, or the people who are really sad, or the people who are like, it's something, and focus on them and say like, oh, okay, at least I don't have that. You don't want that. So like, okay, you have to break the cycle. It's like a mental illness, Yeah, it really is like a mental illness. Did I answer that? But it's true everywhere in the world, by the way. And it's true because of social media. Hey, can I tell you something, by the way? This actually, here's something that's kind of interesting. So there are a lot of professors who see me and they think, wow, I would like to be, here's Dr. Sam Richards, right? He's really well known in Korea and he's well known in other parts of the world. And wow, I would like to be like him. And it must be so cool to be like him because people are happy to talk to him and people watch his videos and people, oh, it must be really cool to be Sam Richards, right? It's not cool. I mean, when I get off this call, I'm just going to go to bed. Like my life is really not very interesting. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to have coffee and then I'm going to sit at my computer and I'm going to work and, like, okay. And maybe in a couple of weeks, I'll have another call with somebody. There's nothing special about somebody else's life. Yeah, it never is. All the members right now of BTS, or all the K-pop groups and all the celebrities that you know about, right now they're just having coffee or something. You know what I mean? They're just sitting in a room by themselves. Like there's nothing. It's just not, that's how life is. But we grow up in this place where we want to be like somebody that we can't be like. Because we think they're special. And we think it's better than what we have. And it's really not. Yeah, like my life is actually really boring. If you watched me, if you were my personal assistant and you were with me all day long, I'm just sitting at my computer. It's very boring.
Hi there. So my name is Aisha and I am from Uzbekistan. I am a foreigner student in Bukyang National University. And
Awesome.
I'm majoring in International Development Cooperation.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to get your advice for me. So sometimes it's kind of hard to compete with Korean students because they're too smart. And I am having a hard time studying in Korean, and all subjects are teaching in Korean. So
Yeah.
what do you think? Should I like continue and give my best to study and whatever? Or what do you give as advice? Like, should
Listen.
we do something different?
No, for you, it's easy, actually. Okay, so I know Uzbekistan, and I know, like K-pop and Korea is popular in Uzbekistan, right? That's why you're here in Korea, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So even if you speak Korean like okay, you're still so far ahead of other young people in Uzbekistan. Yeah. So even if you feel like, oh, wow, like I'm so far behind, I should speak better. Korean students are so smart. I'm not smart. You're so far ahead of so many other students, including American students, by the way, because you're there. You learn. How many languages do you speak?
I speak Russian, Uzbek, and Korean, and also
And
English.
English. Yeah, you speak 4 languages. You are like so privileged, like you are so advanced. Yeah. So like, wow, how amazing to be you. And so when you only look like right here in front of you, like right now, you don't see, it's going to be difficult for you to see the ways in which this experience is so awesome for you, right? But if I see you in 20 years, I know that you're going to have a really, really cool life journey, because in the next 20 years, so many interesting things are going to happen for you because you have these experiences. So like, wow, how awesome. So that's how I see someone like you. Yeah. So your job right now is to not feel nervous at all, not feel stressed at all. Just every moment, just take in all of these great experiences that are happening for you and all of the great friendships that are happening. And then just keep improving your Korean little by little. Yeah. Your English is amazing. So, yeah. That's 4 languages. 4 really important languages. Russian, Uzbek is not an important language. I love Uzbek as a language, but in the world, it's not an important language. It is for you because it's your home language, right? Your
Yeah,
family is Uzbek, so it's really important for you. But you speak Russian, like Korean and English, like 3 really important languages. So, this is awesome.
yeah,
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
It covers 30% of the population.
Yeah. It's a lot. Well, English is okay. Now, if you learn Chinese or Mandarin, that would be big, but it's good. Korean's really, really important. It's a really important language. So, and I think, Wusik, you, Professor Chung, we as professors, as Americans, we call other professors by their first names all the time. That's just what we do. In Korea, you don't do that. It's professor and doctor. But for us, it's just, I tell people, call me Sam. All professors just call me Sam. I call them their first name. But anyway, Dr. Chung, did you have any idea you were going to end up where you ended up? Like here, being a professor and...
Not really.
Yeah. When you were 20, were you worried about what was going to happen to you? And
I really didn't know. I had an expectation or a goal But even in my case, I got my goal at the age of 30. So after graduation, and then got into Samsung, and then working, I realized that I didn't like this one and that one, and I like that one. Okay, study again, and that's how I studied abroad. Totally shifted my job and my study, my major, everything changing. But instead, this can be a kind of answer. Even though I didn't like my major, actually I majored in my veterinary medical science, which is, but I really didn't like it. My GPA, even I don't remember the terminology of that one. Really, I was a magician at the lowest, bottom. And but I didn't like it in my undergraduate. But later on, when I become 30s, 40s, it was helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. At least I could think a little bit logically.
Yes.
So later on, sometimes we find my past is worthwhile, even though it looks very painful at the right moment. But later, everything that I experienced, it'll be mine. It's my part of my asset, even though it's connected with my goal. So for these PK and new students, you go for it, whatever you want, just try it and try it. Socialize yourself with others. And like today, talk, speak it out. Then meet more people, then more hear something, and you see the road, then try to go that way. Always, life doesn't actually get accomplished as you planned. Never.
Yeah. No,
But
it never does.
But if you don't have any plan, you may wonder much longer. So anyway, try and make a plan and try to go that. What you like, then you see something other. Wow. And then said, click. Wow, here it clicked my head. And then you're gonna find out what I really like.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. It's a click. Also, life is very slow. It's very long. Yeah, sometimes we feel like we have to figure it out really soon, and life is so long. Wow. Yeah, it's not. It's really curious to see, how many Koreans are not having children because, you're younger people are, I don't know, worried about something. I don't know, like.
Birth rate is the lowest in the world.
Yeah.
It is also getting down.
This is going to have a real impact on Korean society, by the way. Yeah, so one of the first questions was, what advice do I have for Korea? It's start having children.
To have children, actually, we have to get married first.
Yeah, okay, get married and then have children. Yeah, well, in the US, we just have children without getting married, so,
And cultural shock when we are living.
Yeah. I mean, there too, I guess, but not. It's more common here. Hey, wait, I have a question actually for young people, for some of the students. How common is it that someone would have a child and not be married, just live with their boyfriend or girlfriend? Do any of you know anybody who has a child who's not married? They just live together. Wow, it's so interesting, In some communities here, like half of all children are born outside of a marriage. Yeah, it's so common.
Not in Korea. But how do you say they're living together without marriage? In French, we say concubin. How do you have any terminology for that in English?
Just say, just living together, we say.
In Korea now, there are some tendencies, young people to live together before marriage.
Yeah, okay.
1 or 2 years, and then if they like it, maybe getting married.
Yeah, okay.
that tendency is increasing about like 10%. One time I've seen some article about that, but not having a child.
Well, that makes sense because housing, especially in places like Seoul, right? It's less true in other cities, but like in Seoul, I mean, right, housing is so expensive, right? Before you jump in. Yeah. Yeah, my wife and I lived together for 3 years.
I think what about the tendency in the United States? There are some girls, ladies who don't like husband, but want child.
Yeah, yeah.
What about the single mom status in the United States?
Yeah, that's many women who will decide that maybe they just never found a partner, they never found a husband, but they want to have a child, so then they go have a child. Maybe go to a sperm bank or something, yeah, or find somebody, yeah, to help them. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common actually, to be honest. I mean, I would say, yeah.
That was my biggest cultural shock when I was arrived in France.
Uh-huh.
Like one of my classmates, he introduced one time his elder brother, but one was white and the other one was black.
Uh-huh.
One was only 5 feet something, and the other one is almost 6 feet. I mean,
Uh-huh.
biologically, these cannot be brothers.
Yeah.
I couldn't hide my facial expression. You brother, and but French people very proudly, oh, Mr. Zhang, this is because of cultural difference. My mother was very much revolutionary, and he was explaining about the single mom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's, unfortunately, it happens often in poor communities. And the communities that really can't afford to be single parents. Yeah, that's a problem here in the US. Yeah. So are there any other questions?
One more question, lastly. I think it's almost midnight there in the United States. We are
No, it's only it's 9:25.
9:25. Wow.
Yeah, so we're okay. It's still, yeah.
Professor, can you give me any advice? What are the most important things our students must have before going out to society, to the real world? The best important thing.
Wow. I think the recognition that self-confidence only comes from doing something. Yeah. So one of the things that holds us back is we often don't feel self-confident. But you only get confidence by actually doing something. You don't get confidence by sitting back and imagining. And so I think that when you think about going out into the world and working and doing things, and if you don't feel confident about it, well, that's because you don't have experience. So the more experience you have, the more confidence you'll have. So when you don't feel confident, don't let that stop you from having experiences. Just let that be motivation that tells you, oh, I need to have more experiences. Yeah. How about that? That's like a really nice thing to remember. Because I find that people sometimes, they don't take risks and they don't do things because they don't feel like they can. Like speaking English, for example, is a good one. Yeah. It's like, yeah.
From your mentoring today, our student can be deeply motivated to start their new chapter of their lives. And please remember us. And then on the process of learning a world and global educational trend and changing our system, it will be worth paying attention to our PKNU and our students. And please remember us. Thank you so much today.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, thank you. Hey, and you know, here's the other thing. It's really important. Hang on, I'm going to fix my headphones. You know, a lot of times, this is really good for all of you to remember. A lot of times, you know, here in the United States, we focus on like the certain universities, which are like the most elite universities, okay? And in Korea, you have, you know, of course, the 3 sky universities, right?
You know,
And everyone thinks like, and they're all in Seoul, and everyone thinks, oh, these are the most important. And if I don't go to one of those universities, or I don't, then I'm a failure, or like I'm not as good as somebody else. But nobody else cares. You know, when I talk to people in Seoul, I talk to people who I met the CEO of a company that's based in Busan. And I asked him, so listen, when you're hiring people, what are you looking for? Are you looking for the university they went to? He said, no, I don't care. I don't care about the university. I said, what are you looking for? And he said, I want to know what their previous employers said about them. If they get a recommendation. And if they get a recommendation that says this is a really, really good worker, then he said, okay, then I want to give them a chance. I don't care what school they went to. It doesn't matter to me. All I want is a good worker. And I said, my God, that's the same thing we say in the United States. And so therefore, when you go to your university, which is not, you know, Seoul National and, you know, Korea University and so on, it doesn't matter. What matters is, are you a good worker? And do you want to learn? And do you want to grow? And do you want to work hard? And do you want to build confidence, self-confidence, right? And if you do, that's what people care about. And it won't happen right away, you know, like, so for example, maybe when you start out, if you have a degree from Seoul National University, maybe your first job is easier to get. But this CEO was saying like, oh yeah, we just had 2 employees, one from Korea University, one from Seoul University, and we had to let them go because they weren't good workers. We didn't get to, you know, it doesn't matter. So it only matters for your first job, maybe, but after that, it's about you. It's all about you. And the spirit you bring, you know, so that's important, I think.
Just first job easier, that's all.
Yeah. And there aren't that many graduates from those 3 universities. There really aren't that many graduates, and there are way more jobs. So
even recently, there are some more attendance growing without looking at the details of their schools. So blind interview.
yes. Yeah.
Without looking. So which is much fair, or their capability can be proven. So show yourself. That's it. Okay.
Yeah. And that's the blind interview is more and more common in Korea, which is a good thing. Because the reason it's not because of discrimination. It's because employers realize that they're missing so many great candidates because of these blind interviews. And I would say, like, Yuna, you might be like me. I didn't open my mind up. I was 24 years old before I went, oh, I think I understand my path. And I was 24, and that's when I took off. But when I was 21, if I had an employer interview me or something, I was I had nothing up here. I just wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready. I mean, I had things. I was excited. I was a musician. I was excited. I read. I knew lots. I read things. I was passionate about reading things, but I had nothing up here. I was 24. Yeah. And then I was even okay. I was 31. It took me until I was 31 that I could say I'm actually a pretty decent thinker. Yeah. I think I have some good thoughts. So.
Go to the library, learn.
Yeah. 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 Skip your class and go to the library. Yeah. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. It was a real good time. Oh.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, we can do this again sometime. I love it. It's really fun.
I really would like to discuss about this, and we would like to ask you. I really think that traditional school system has been collapsed. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's not working anymore. That's why
Yeah.
I really like your way of teaching, having conversation, discussing about the main topic, and even what you're doing with your wife as a together like worlding conversations are also really a lot of discussion are going on by the topics, right? So I really hope that our students can have that kind of opportunity in the future so that they can expand their spectrum of those thoughts so that they can have more real dream what they want. Less fear, flying rich, just go for it, right?
Less fear. Yeah. Less fear and less soju, by the way.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's why you know that Korean soju is #1 dream.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You know, when I was there, when I was in Seoul a few weeks ago, you know, when we would go out at dinner, I would try to keep up with Koreans. You know, they would do a shot of soju and I would do a shot of soju. And I realized very quickly, I said, I can't keep up with Koreans. They are professional soju drinkers. And
crazy, so some people say, you know, Korea was described as a land of morning calm. And then one day in my young days, I explained, no, that's not true. The reason why Korea is called as a land of morning calm, Korean people drink soju too much. So naturally, everyone is so quiet. That's why Korea is the land of morning calm.
Exactly, because they all have headaches from the night before.
When you drink, we have no end limitation. Just go for it until the end. That's why.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Let me know when you want to do this again. Yeah, it will be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. It's good. And watch my class anytime. You know, watch the videos. Class is a lot of fun. You know, the other day, on last Thursday, I had a student in class. Her father is deaf, and her father came into class with her, and the two of them had conversations in sign language. We spent the whole class talking with him, and it was really interesting. You know, we really learned a lot. So it was fun. Next class, we will talk about the Olympics. Yeah. Okay. Well, all right, everyone. Thank you. I'm really honored that you would show up. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I want to say in Korean, can you read?
감사합니다.
In Korean.
Oh, very cool. Wow. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Okay, Professor Chang, let me know next time you want to do this again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, be well.
Talk to you later.
Okay, goodbye.
워낙 유명하신 샘 리처드 교수님이랑 좋은 시간 온라인으로는 아마 보낼 수 있어서 뜻깊은 기회가 된 것 같습니다. 감사합니다.
삶에 대한 샘 리차드 교수님의 이야기를 들으면서 저도 이제 공감도 갖고 앞으로 어떻게 해야 될지 대충 지도를 그려볼 수 있는 그런 시간이었습니다. 감사합니다.
이 강의를 얼마나 이해할 수 있을지 걱정하면서 왔었는데 얼마나 더 공부해야 되는지랑 지금 어느 정도 알아들을 수 있는지 다시 한번 확인할 수 있었고 다른 분들 영어를 어떻게 쓰는지 들으면서 조금 더 동기부여를 받고 더 가는 것 같아서 좋은 시간이었던 것 같습니다.
교수님 얘기를 들으면서 영어 공부도 많이 됐고, 약간 멘토링적인 인생 얘기도 들을 수 있어서 너무 좋았습니다.
네, 저도 들을 수 있어서 네, 좋았고 계속 영어로 듣는데 좀 어려움이 있었지만 그래 영어로 계속 들을 수 있어서 좋았어요.
저도 교수님들이랑 좋은 시간을 보냈습니다. 감사합니다.
장훈식 대표님의 오늘 그 유창한 그 영어 실력하고 오늘 그 리차드 샘 교수님의 그 영어 그 잘 들었고 오늘 또 부경대학교 동생들 영어 실력 그 유창한 영어 실력 잘 들어가지고 제가 오늘 또 뜻깊은 시간 보냈습니다. 좀 많이 그 사회 그 선배님들한테 많이 배우겠습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 여기서 마무리하겠습니다.